Hello, my name's Jim Van Koski. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a retired teacher, coach, athletic director, and for the past 20 years, I've been involved in sports dealing with Delaware County's history, including men and women's sports. So naturally, anytime I read in the paper something regarding women's sports, I like to be able to take a look at it and get my take on it. On January 20th, 2021, I happened to read President Biden's executive order on preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation. So I said, well, this might have something to do with sports somewhere along this executive order. So I read it. It seemed to be innocuous enough for me and remind me of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, to tell you the truth. Title VII of that Civil Rights Act dealing with equalization of gender and men and women in the way of sports. So I didn't give it much thought. But then 2 days later, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that said Joe Biden's first day began the end of girls' sports. Now that really got my attention. So I said, well, how could this executive order that I just read have anything to do about ending girls' sports? I said, I better go back and read that executive order again. And then in my second time, I noticed that there was no reference made to men, women, male, female, boys, girls. It was just gender. It was just gender identity. So I said, well, I'm going to take this a little bit further. And I Googled gender identity. And what I saw there surprised the heck out of me, because as a 74-year-old individual that's been involved in sports my entire life, I was not ready for the various definitions that came up in terms of gender identity. And I thought that, maybe I should find out a little bit more about this. And maybe this timely issue and relevant issue would be something that we could share with the public at large, just to find out the science behind this gender identity issue. So I thought of two individuals. One was Rich Pagano, his Delaware County sports historian, and another Delaware County sports hero and star, Shannon Grady, who we appreciate her knowledge as far as the science is concerned of this issue. So I'm going to stop here, and we're going to take a look at a video, 3-minute video, while I change mics and we bring on Rich and Shannon. And after this 3-minute video, she'll give you an idea as to Shannon's experience and what she's going to be talking about today. And I'll see you at the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're here today with Shannon Grady, one of the greatest track stars in the history of Delaware County. Shannon, could you tell us what you're doing now, though? I wanted to tell the people what you were just involved in.
Now I'm competing on the international level for triathlon, so I just raced at the World Championships. I've been part of Team USA for 6 World Championship competitions.
And that's triathlon?
Triathlon, yep, that's correct. So still kicking away at the ripe age of 43, still competing at a high level.
And do you have a sponsor, someone who's a running group that sponsors you, or you're part of the USA team?
Yeah, part of Team USA, yeah.
Now, the exercise, I know you have a degree from Florida in exercise physiology, but can you explain what you actually do with the teams in Bermuda?
Yeah, so I'm a physiologist, sports physiologist, and right now I'm the physiologist for the Olympic sports for Bermuda. So essentially what I do is I go in, I test all the athletes and put together the training plans for all the Olympic sports, consult with the coaches just to make sure that their training that they're doing is basically geared towards competing at the Olympic Games. And I also consult a lot of other college teams and national teams around the world. So
And how long have you been doing this?
since 1999.
And do you still have your other business?
Yeah, so this is all part of my company. So people hire me. Yep.
And what is the name of your company?
Go Athletics.
Go Athletics. And when you were at Sun Valley, and you were involved with high school track and cross country too,
Yep.
what was what event stands out the most that you accomplished? And I was going to say something at the Penn Relays. Would that?
I would say it would be the Penn Relays. Junior year, our team won the Championship of America in the distance medley. We set an American record. So that was really fun as a team event. And then the next year, I followed up winning the individual title. So I think that Penn Relays is definitely more of a magical event for kids in this area, for sure. Yeah.
Well, listen, Shannon, it was great. I'm glad you could make it today. I'm going to let you eat lunch.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Rich Pagano, and today our guest, and I'd like to welcome her now, is Shannon Grady. And Shannon is the co-founder and CEO of Go Athletics. She has written a book called The Lactate Revolution. Shannon is a sports scientist with over 30 years experience as an athlete and 18 years as a physiologist, sports performance expert, and coach. And Shannon, I want to welcome you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and I have a ton of questions. My first one that I'd like to get to with this entire subject is, should we keep politics out of sports?
Absolutely, yes. My job is a sports scientist. Many people may not know exactly what that means. It's a broad category and can encompass many things. But at its core, fundamentally, our role as sports scientists is to eliminate subjective bias in sport, which means that we create objective-based categorization and criteria to ensure fairness and safety for all participants. So our main role is to ensure that sports participants not only are safe, but no harm is done to them or by them. So which means that we have various objective-based categorizations. So objective means we can measure it. We have a metric or a criteria which each person fits into a certain category to eliminate, first and foremost, for safety purposes. So this can span many things, many criteria, but the main reason we have objective-based categorization and criteria is for fairness and safety of all participants.
And these sex-based sports categories, as you said, they're not only put in place for fair and equal competition, but also for safety. Can you elaborate a little more on that, the safety issue?
Yeah, so there's inherent differences between biological sex, male and female. From a physical standpoint, you have men, biological men can run 10 to 15% faster. They can jump 15 to 20% higher. They can lift 30 to 60% more weight. And from a objective-based categorization, sex-based sports categorization were put in place for that primary reason, for safety and fairness of all participants. And then within male and female categories, you do have other categorizations because sports as a whole is probably one of the most inclusive entities on the planet. You have categories literally for every level and type of participant. You have age-based categorization, you have physical ability categorization. So Paralympics, for example, has different categories based on your physical impairment. Your one limb, two limb, etc. There's multiple categorizations, and then you even have age group categorizations. Then you even have within sports, you have different levels of
performance categorizations. You have elite, you have amateur, you have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you name it, there's a category for everybody that is based in objective criteria, a criteria in which you can measure.
So what does the actual drug testing show? Can you explain the certain hormones that would give an athlete an unfair advantage?
Yeah, so hormones, for example, is one of our objective-based criteria in which we, as sports scientists, are put in place to, one, create fairness, but also safety of that participant. The main reason we have drug testing is, one, it's unfair to the other participants, but two, it's harmful to the participant who takes those hormones. So biological males and biological females have hormone levels that are in different ranges. And biological males and biological female hormones, so for the main hormone we're talking about is testosterone. That's the main hormone that's going to generate the major physical differences in muscle mass, strength, and physical ability between males and females. So our hormone level testing, you have what's called endogenous hormones, which are hormones your body naturally produces. And then you have exogenous hormones, which are hormones that you can take to improve your levels. So the reason why the hormone levels are set in a certain criteria for the male and female categories is because endogenous or naturally occurring hormones such as testosterone, differences between a male and female will never cross over. The highest female testosterone hormones will never reach the lowest male levels. So when you're just talking in terms of hormones, that criteria is in place, one, to ensure the fairness and safety, but two, a male, if he takes above the normal range of naturally producing testosterone, it will give him a physical advantage, but also it's harmful to that person. Taking exogenous hormones such as testosterone can create heart conditions, stroke, cancer. So, these supplements, any type of sports performance, any sports performance enhancement substance is actually harmful to your health. So you're risking your health to try to win a competition. So that's the primary reason those rules are in place.
Yeah, maybe I should define this whole idea of transgender women. And the definition as I have is it's a biological man that wants to be a woman but truly feels they are a woman internally. So it's very subjective because you're talking that we have definite objective rules and regulations in the world of sports.
Yes.
So these transgender women who are on hormone therapy for even a year, does it remove that performance advantage?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So there's multiple studies that have been done throughout history. In recent times, you can reference multiple studies on the topic, and the effect of what we call male to female hormone therapy, which is where a male will take female hormones to reduce their levels of testosterone, which are actually never reduced to the level of a biological female. Okay, so one, they already have a physical, their muscle mass does not change, their physical statute does not change. They'll suppress down to the level of a low for a male, but it's not the level of a female. And biological females, we're not allowed to take hormones to get us up to the level of a male to female taking hormone suppressants or something to suppress their testosterone. So it's unsafe, but two, there's going to always be a physical disadvantage. So there's no decrease in muscle strength on male to female hormones if they're taking it for a year or 2 years or more. And even after hormone therapy for 2 years, they're still showing that they're 95% stronger. They're still running 12% faster. They're still outperforming in every physical sense of the word. So, the effects of, biological male hormones are not eliminated or reduced enough to put them in a biological female range.
So that extended use of male to female hormones does not level the playing field
Does
at
not
all.
level the playing field, and it's harmful to the when a biological male takes female hormones, you are at risk primarily of stroke and cancer. So
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit about the organization, Save Women's Sports? And I guess what I'm asking is, how this whole what's going on though? How is it in direct conflict of Title IX?
yeah, so Title IX was put in place in order to preserve sex-based categorization and create opportunities for girls and women. So in essence, when you allow a biological male to take the spot of a female, you're eliminating a spot and an opportunity for girls, which is protected under Title IX. So this executive order is in direct violation of Title IX. Okay, so that's the first problem. So they're trying to eliminate sex-based categorization. So anytime a male takes the place of a female, you're eliminating opportunities for females, but in essence, you're actually changing the dynamics of the entire team and the teams they play against. For example, if you have a lacrosse game, high school level, you have a biological male playing on the girls' team, then that male is taking the place of a female. He's entering into the game, scoring probably most of the points. Then now the team you're playing against, those females are negatively impacted because that male is allowing that female team to possibly advance to districts, to advance to states, or get into a tournament in which those girls, maybe from the other team, are not exposed to college coaches. So there's a trickle-down effect. It's not just one boy, biological boy here and there. What's the big deal? It is a big deal because it changes the dynamics of every team and every person that they will interact with. So, there's multiple, within the past year, multiple NCAA titles have been won by female girls, in the girls category, males have won. High school, boys are winning girls titles. So again, I don't know how the NCAA is dealing with scholarships, but it's something that maybe has not happened yet where they've awarded a female scholar, because there's only a certain number of scholarships available to males and females. And Title IX is what created the scholarship opportunities for girls. I mean, if I didn't have a full athletic scholarship, then my life would be completely different. But also, that applies to many girls. So I don't know exactly where the NCAA stands on a scholarship awarding, but it's not out of the realm of possibility if this trend continues. So, with objective-based categorization, I empathize with people who are going through this, but at the same point, we can't objectively understand, do they truly? You can't prove, if I'm a boy and I want to go to college for free, you can't prove that I'm just saying, hey, I'm gonna run the girls' state track meet so I can get a scholarship. If that's available, if that economic opportunity is available, what's to stop them?
Yeah.
And you can't objectively prove that. Not saying that they would do that, but you can't prove that. So we need to we need to stick with objective-based categorization in order to eliminate subjective bias.
Well, this Save Women's Sports, which was founded by this amateur power lifter, and I have to read this. Her quote, "If we allow males to compete in female sports, there will be men's sports, there will be co-ed sports, but there will no longer be women's sports." So what steps are Save Women's Sports, this organization? What are they doing?
Well, one, we're speaking out.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, I have been a personal victim of speaking about my stance and making other people aware of what's going on, and trying to keep sex-based categorization in sports. And we're one speaking out. Beth, the founder of Save Women's Sports, has gotten death threats and all sorts of threats, discrimination against her. I've gotten attacked for being, quote, transphobic, or, you know, this, that, and the other thing. You know, they've tried to, you know, attempt to get me banned from competing and this and that because of my, you know, speaking out about this. You know, so one, you know, speaking out, you do get bullied. We do get bullied. But two, the main thing is creating awareness and working. You know, Beth has been to many states trying to put into law to keep sex-based categorization in sports, and that's literally what the main goal is, to put in. And I think several states so far have enacted into law to keep sex-based categorization in sports, which is good. So there's a bill in Pennsylvania going to be on the table, and hopefully that gets passed in Pennsylvania as well.
Yeah, that's the bill that I was told will be vetoed by our governor.
Most likely.
But, so when it comes to transgender and women's sports, they basically totally ignore the reality of biology and physiology. They're ignoring that.
Exactly right. They are absolutely
which gives you
ignoring
your objective.
Yes, they're ignoring objective reality or objective-based categorization, objective-based criteria. So once you ignore objective-based criteria, you know, and you bring in subjective criteria, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? So, okay, let's start with gender or sex. Let's start there. And then what if you want to identify as a 7-year-old boy and play t-ball? Is that fair? You know, what if you know, there's weight categorization. What if I want, you know, because it's subjective. So once you open that can of worm, where does subjective criteria end? And this is what we're trying to nip in the bud. Again, it's not, you know, we're not trying to exclude anybody. We're not trying to say you can't participate. But in order to create fairness and safety for all participants, we need objective-based categorization criteria, because sports are physical. You know, that's an objective reality. Sports are physical. I don't know if you've seen the MMA fighter that's been bashing women's faces in. Is that fair? That's a physical sport. So you have a male competing in the women's division in MMA. He's literally smashing women's faces in and being celebrated.
Yeah, see, I wasn't aware of, the first I heard anything about this was the state girls track and field meet in Connecticut.
Yes.
But I didn't know that. I mean, how widespread is it, and how long has it been going on?
You know, it's been going on a long time. I mean, you can go back in history, especially in track and field, where several biological males have competed in the women's category without really being noticed, but they're noticed. You know, and in recent history, biological males have been winning most women's track and field, you know, titles at high levels. You know, and they're you know, so it's definitely, you know, and it's at every level. It's at the youth level, it's at the high school level, it's at the college level, across almost every sport. You know, so it's not just, it's just one person. You know, and quite frankly, the medical research shows that, you know, this approach to, you know, gender dysphoria, which is the mental disorder classification of transgenderism, that this approach medically, from a medical standpoint, does not improve their depression, their suicidal thoughts, and and then so you talk about so what they call transition therapy or identifying. So basically, you have these feelings, and then you're just going to live your life as that. So the medical research shows that actually does not improve their mental state of feelings of depression and suicide, but also from the medical interventions. Now they're starting to give puberty blockers and the hormone therapy to people who suffer from gender dysphoria, and the medical research shows that that's actually harmful. So you know, the intervention right now that they're accepting is actually not shown to be beneficial. So that's a whole different issue that needs to be addressed in the psychology field. How do we deal with this in a more positive way that's not harmful to the child or the person?
Yeah, and the one story that I was aware of, but I thought it was very unique, I didn't know how widespread it was back in the 32 Olympics, which were held in Los Angeles. There was a track and field athlete from Poland. Her name was Stella Walsh, and she won all the sprints, gold medals at the sprints. And they found out later in the 1980s when she passed away that she was a man. Biologically, she was a man. So I had no idea how widespread that has become. I know there was always a problem in the Olympics, especially in track and field, with the Iron Curtain countries, the women in the field events, and they would test them, and some were thrown out of the Olympics because they weren't women.
Right.
But so I feel the real problem here is for the sports world is what makes a human being a male or female, and what's the definition of that, and then where do we go from? What would be a solution to this? Because I always say it's a solution to the problem, but they say doesn't exist.
Right.
We gave enough information here today that there is a problem and it does exist. So what is your solution to the problem?
Yeah, so a proposed solution would be one, to stick with objective-based criteria. So there are measurable criteria in human physiology that you can absolutely measure, such as hormone levels, such as chromosomes, etc. There's a range. People say, well, not every male has the same level of hormones and not every female has the same level. Correct. But the ranges for XX and XY do not cross over. Biological males and biological females do not cross over, which is why we have those ranges set in the first place. So that's the first thing. So we can pick, it is proven medically that hormones contribute to your physical attributes. Okay, so yes, within XX and XY there are ranges. We understand that, so we keep the criteria within those physiological ranges for XX and XY. So the simple solution, again, because we don't want to exclude anybody. So if since this is becoming more participants are falling into more transgender participants are coming to light. So the simple solution would be to say, okay, here's our sex-based, objective-based criteria based on XX and XY. If you do not agree with your XX and XY and these objective criteria, then you can compete in an open category. So you have objective criteria, sex-based categorization, physical attribute that we can measure, or open if you don't agree. So this way everybody's happy.
And is that something that Save Women's Sports is involved in, or is this just your solution?
That's my personal solution. So Save Women's Sports is primarily more about education, working with legislation, trying to get legislation passed to protect sex-based categorization. And we haven't really gotten to that point because every organization has, so many sports organizations, cycling, gymnastics, whatever the organization is. So, on the whole, as a sports scientist, that's, what I've, when people say, well, what would the solution be? And that's the simplest solution is, basically an open category, and you don't need a whole separate competition. You don't need a whole separate, if it's a track meet, you just have, one heat, one, it's not like you need a whole separate meet or anything like that. This way, it creates fairness, safety for all. And
well, Shannon, I'm really glad you stopped by because you gave me a lot of insight. Hopefully the people out there in our viewing audience will have a much better understanding and insight into this situation. I hate to refer to it as a problem. They say it's a problem that doesn't exist. But I hope that everyone enjoys this video and you were enlightened today about this whole transgender issue with its relationship to sports. Thank you, and see you next time.